What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm your host, Haize, and thank you for tuning in. On today's episode, we got quotes from Artūras Karnišovas that we're going to go over, as well as Lonzo Ball. Also, the Bulls kind of worked in a secret workout with EJ Liddell, and I'll tell you guys what I mean by that when we get into the main show. And don't worry, we're still going to be doing draft prospects. This time, we're going to be covering Dyson Daniels and Caleb Houstan. We'll get into all that and more on today's Chicago Bulls Central.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
All right, Bulls fans. So, Artūras Karnišovas was being interviewed for the House of Basketball documentary, and he had a very interesting quote, and one that a lot of places and platforms are running with, because guess what? It's just a slow news week. But I do want to go over this and just what this could mean and the focus that AK brings, and just the fact of how we can, even with quotes like this, we can now trust them because of what AK has shown, what this front office has shown, whereas with the previous front office, we may have not believed it even if they did say this quote. So this one is directly from AK, and the quote is, "I've been rocking Bulls jersey since I was a student, and I've been a fan of them since then. The vision is to win the title. I realized last year that this historic club deserves a better team. The current situation is not enough, and we need to create something better." So while that's what you want to hear from your GM, every GM in the league should be saying this exact same thing. But when it comes from AK, and the fact that we know he's a genuine guy, the fact that he's shown and proved in the time that he's been here, how quickly he's turned around that team, we can trust that this is truly how this man feels, and this is the vision that he sees for the team. Now, I know that some people have issues with some of the moves AK has done, and while I don't agree with that as much, I know, like, in a vacuum, it's easy to say, hey, we should have kept Daniel Gafford instead of Troy Brown Jr. Guess what? The extension that Daniel Gafford got with the Washington Wizards, he was never getting with the Chicago Bulls. That man is going to be making, on average, $13 million a year when his extension kicks in. Guess what? He wasn't going to get that at that time with the Chicago Bulls, just with everything else going on. Zach LaVine's contract extension coming up. Now we have Ayo Dosunmu. Guess what? Had we kept Daniel Gafford, that would mean that somebody who's a key part of this team, or a key part of the future, whether it be Ayo, whether it be Lonzo, whether it be DeMar, was not going to be on this team. It just wasn't going to happen. So I get it, and in the vacuum, and some people say the Wendell Carter thing. And listen, Wendell Carter went to a team where he has way more opportunities and can get off as many shots as he wanted to. The one thing that I have always said with that Vooch trade and Wendell Carter trade is not flipping the players. It's the fact that the Bulls gave another first-round pick, right? That not only did they get the first-round pick that turned into Franz Wagner, they also have a first-round pick next year as well. Those are some of the things that I do have a little bit of issues with, but I understand why he did the deals overall. But then the way that he brought in DeMar, the way that he brought in Lonzo, the fact that he signed Alex Caruso, drafting Ayo Dosunmu, I trust AK's vision. And while that quote like this are a dime a dozen when it comes to GMs, like I said, you should hear this from every GM around the league. It just feels a little bit more genuine when it comes from somebody like Artūras Karnišovas, because we trust him. We know that he's always looking to improve the team. Him and Eversley, and the job that they've done so far has been amazing, and I hope to continue to see it. And I've said it before, we're going to get a surprising deal this offseason. Best believe our AK and Eversley are going to do something that none of us expected, and that just feels good. It feels good to have this team that in a front office that is focused on getting us as close to a championship as possible. But the sensationalized part of this that you're going to hear and probably see by a lot of platforms is the current situation is not enough, and we need to create something better. Okay, listen, like I said, it's true. We need something better because this team, and we know that they had holes in the roster. We came into the season knowing an injury to our front court would almost be irreplaceable. Now, luckily, Javonte Green came in and showed the hell out. But still, we knew that coming in. Hopefully this season we have a little bit more balance on the roster, a little bit more depth on that bench as well as signing Zach LaVine, things like that. And, hey, it is what it is. Now, talk about sensationalism. We also do have, it was a report coming out, and this one is again from David Kaplan, who after that LeVar interview has really just been on it's like he has this motive when it comes to this narrative he likes to pick on whatever it is to say that Zach LaVine is not going to come here. But he did come out and say that there are some in the Chicago Bulls front office that want Zach LaVine to come back on a max contract, and there are some that are doubtful on really giving Zach LaVine that max contract. I think it's all for naught, personally. I think that Zach LaVine is definitely going to be back here on a max contract, and I think that the most important people whether it's whoever's in the executive office, is the president of basketball operations and the GM of this team, AK and Eversley. And we know that they do expect and want to give Zach LaVine that max contract. And, I know it's something, again, like I said, this is going to be the summer of Zach. If you guys have noticed, I really don't talk much about Zach LaVine's contract anymore as much because I'm just tired of it. At the end of the day, once the free agency opens, we're going to know very shortly what's going on with Zach LaVine. I think in less than a week, we'll know what's going on with Zach LaVine's extension or not. So, we'll see. And that's where I think on that. Now, I did say something that are AK and Eversley secretly working out draft prospects. And the reason why I say this is because EJ Liddell did post his Instagram story, which is craziest places of all places to break news. And he did have a workout with the Chicago Bulls. Now, as much as we've been getting announced Chicago Bulls workouts, they've all been with second round picks or players that are projected to go undrafted, things like that. EJ Liddell, who, slated to go to that end of first, sometime in some mocks beginning of second round. And EJ Liddell, Shay, who's always in the chat, that's his guy. That's the pick that I said I think the Bulls will make. Not necessarily the number one person on my board, but I think he will be the pick for the Chicago Bulls. Did have a workout, and the fact that it broke from his story, no announcements that he had a workout, anything like that, it lets me know that AK and Eversley are probably also working out people. They're just not announcing that they're working out some of the top prospects. And somebody pointed out as well that the Bulls didn't work out Patrick Williams. So, or at least that we know of. Right now, this makes me raise some questions on if that happened or not. So because of that, listen, AK and Eversley are doing their damn job. That's all it says. And if EJ Liddell ends up being the pick, I do think that EJ Liddell would be a seamless pick for the Chicago Bulls. We got a voicemail from Shay on him as well that I'll play on the mailbag episode Saturday. But I do think that EJ Liddell would be seamless as far as just sliding in, having a dedicated role off the bench, being the energy guy, shooting, defense, just everything that you want from a bench player in the NBA. EJ Liddell brings that. And so, I'm not surprised that the Bulls are working him out. I would not be surprised at all if come the draft, he is the pick at number 18 for the Chicago Bulls at all. He's going to be a hell of a player if he is the pick. Go back and check out my draft player profile on EJ Liddell if you haven't already to know how I feel about him and his prospect as in the draft. I also put one of the little cards up there. I don't know which side it'll be on, but I'll put the little card up there at the top. The next quote before we get into our draft player profiles is Lonzo Ball. Lonzo Ball told the Air Company that he knows he has the skills it takes to perform at a high level. This comes from Daniel Greenberg, Shy Sports Updates on Twitter. Make sure you guys follow him. He does tweet out a lot of updates and things going on with the Chicago Bulls. But that he knows he has the skills it takes to perform at a high level, but now it's more about just being available to do those things. Direct quote from Lonzo. I still got time to improve and leave my print on this city and help bring a championship. Listen, it's not the update that we want as far as Lonzo Ball's knee, but it does state to his mindset. And the fact that if that's Lonzo's mindset, that's a hell of a mindset to have. That's where we want him at. It seems like he's up and not really down or concerned about the knee. We'll see what's going on with Lonzo's knee. Again, considering this is the downtime of the NBA, I don't expect a lot of announcements. Now, if we get closer and closer to training camp opening and we still don't have any updates, it may be time to be concerned what's going on with Lonzo, but at least hearing that quote from Lonzo, and if Lonzo is available, and that's the key thing it is, because when Lonzo's on the court, he's been everything that he was advertised to be and that we hoped he would be as the starting point guard next to Zach LaVine for the Chicago Bulls. So, prayers up to Lonzo. Hopefully he's ready to go by the start of the season. If he's not, it's really time to be have some concerns. But I think that Lonzo Ball is going to be ready to go for the Chicago Bulls. Let me know what you guys think about all that news. The brief news is not nothing major, but let me know down below what you guys think about the news. What do you think about AK's quote on they need to create something better? What do you think about them working out EJ Liddell? Have you guys more warmed up to him possibly being picked for the Chicago Bulls? And what do you think about the quote from Lonzo Ball? I want to hear all that from you guys down below. But now, let's go ahead and get into our draft prospects. This time, we're going to be covering Dyson Daniels. And this is a player who played for the G League Ignite. He kind of skipped college to go into that. He has a 6'7" wingspan, 195. He's a point guard, shooting guard combo with a 16 wingspan. He's drawn comparisons to Tyler Hero and Byron Scott. Now, I don't know if I quite see those, but again, his size for a guard is great. We know that 6'7", now 195 pounds. He's going to put on that typical NBA weight. He's not a big-time shooter, right? He's not going to take a lot of shots, but he is a solid shooter, and he could become a knockdown shooter over time. Now, again, he has some of those passing abilities. He has a great feel for the game. He knows when to go for his offense versus when to pass it off. His defense, though, that's the key thing that's going to be if Dyson Daniels is the pick and something that could be a hallmark for him early in his NBA career. He may be the best defender in this draft class. And that's just that. Again, that does not mean he's going to be a top prospect being drafted in the top 10 or whatnot. But when you look at just the raw defensive skills, he may be the best perimeter defender in this draft. He has great footwork on the defensive end. He knows how to use his lanes. His hands. He gets in those passing lanes. He's extremely young, and he will take a lot of development to get the most out of him. He's not necessarily one of those picks you may look at and say, hey, he's going to be ready to compete at an NBA level, at a high level in the NBA right away. But that defense, it may be what gets him on the court very early. He's 19 years old. He'll turn 20 in March. So that's towards the end of the season. He'll be 19 for the most part of his NBA season. This guy is linky. And he's a defender that goes out and gets the thing done. Potential's high. He needs some work on the offensive end, the feel for the offense. He's not an explosive player at all. He doesn't have the best athleticism, and he's not the best creative passer. So I don't see him projecting to be, even though he's listed as a point guard, shooting guard, to be a playmaking point guard. But he could very well, depending on who else you have out there on the court, especially if we see Patrick Williams continue to develop as a playmaker, other players, he could play the point and run the point at times, but not be the primary ball handler when he's doing that. He has a slow release as well. That release is going to need to be worked on, and that's one of the key things that if that release gets a little bit better, you can definitely see that shot becoming more of a weapon for him. But like I said, that offense is not going to be his hallmark early in his NBA career. To go over his stats for the G League Ignite last year, he averaged 11 points per game on 14 games he started. They don't break down the minutes per game. He had almost 2 steals per game, 6 rebounds per game, which is huge for a guard. He shot the ball very efficiently from 2-point range as well, with almost 45% overall field goal percentage, 25% from 3. That goes back to that shot. That release is going to need to be worked on. There is enough in his game to where you can see him becoming a solid 3-point shooter, especially with wide open shots and more spacing. But the key thing is that he's not going to be the player that off a dribble can get you some 3-point shooting. The defense is going to be the key for a player like Dyson Daniels. If he comes in, that defense is going to be the big thing for him. That's his hallmark on the NBA level. He is a great, great defender and somebody who can very much step up and come in the league and be a 3-and-D player. And looking at his size, he very well could play some 3 in this league as well, depending on how much weight he's able to put in. He can definitely be a 3-and-D player in the league, at least a player that's defense is his hallmark and can get you some shooting on open shots, depending on how good the rest of the team is. Dyson Daniels, while not a pick that I would like to see the Bulls make per se, I would love Dyson Daniels if the Bulls were able to pick up another late first-round pick somehow or something like that by moving Kobe something. I would love to see him be a pick then, but at the 18th pick, honestly, I don't see it for Dyson Daniels. And that's not a slight on him as a player. Dyson Daniels very well could go to a team, get drafted by a team that has time to invest in his development, and he could turn into a starter level guard on the NBA level. I just personally don't see that for him. I see him being a defensive player that can hit some open shots, that can get out in transition as well with his length and the little bit of foot speed that he does have. But I'm not saying that he's necessarily the player that I would want to see the Bulls draft at all. But I did want to cover him. A lot of people have been asking about Dyson Daniels and if I was going to cover him. But his defense, I'm telling you, this kid defensively, if he's able to put the rest of his game together, the defense is maybe what keeps him on an NBA court. Now, the thing is, and I don't want to cause any alarms, is that we saw Chris Dunn's defensive stats, for example, even in this past season in the games that he did play, have always been great. But we know that he was not able to stay on the court because of his inability on the offensive end. A player like Dyson Daniels, could it possibly go that way? Possibly. But I don't see that. I see him putting in the work, and he's a good enough shooter, especially in space, where I don't see that being the issue for him. But I do think he's going to be a defensive specialist on the NBA level, unless that offensive game comes around a little bit more for him. But let me know what you guys think down below. Seeing some of these highlights, see me talk about him. What do you think about Dyson Daniels and his potential? Again, I don't personally see him being the pick for the Bulls at the 18th pick, but let me know what you guys think about Dyson Daniels, if you think he could be the 18th pick for the Chicago Bulls. Next player that we're going to get into, and this is a player that I'm super excited about. Now, I don't know if he's going to actually be drafted by the Chicago Bulls because he's projected to go a little bit lower than that. but this is Caleb Houstan. He's a 6'8", 205-pound small forward. Now, this guy, and you're going to see this in these highlights, is just an amazing perimeter shooter, period. He may come in and be on whatever team he's going to, may be the best perimeter, just pure perimeter shooter on whatever team he's drafted to. This guy, the way that he gets that shot off, how quick he gets the shot off, the intelligence of when to shoot the ball, amazing. Already at this level and at his young age as well, he sees the game very well. He's a willing passer, not a great passer, but he does make good decisions on when to move the ball off rather than when to try to go to his offense. And that's something in a young player that you want to see, because a lot of young players, they come in, they know they can shoot, they just want to shoot the ball. He's a player who is a very willing passer. Again, not the best passer by any means, but he's a willing passer. And he's a passer he's somebody who's going to work within the flow of offense. I see Caleb Houstan being a great system player. He's going to be one of those players that if he gets into the right system, if he gets into the right coaching staff as well that can develop him and use him correctly, the right team that can use him correctly, he's going to be a great system player. I don't necessarily know if I would want to see the Bulls use the 18th overall pick on him. Again, if the Bulls pick lower, I would love for Caleb Houstan to be the pick there. But like I said before, he's slated in a lot of mocks to go anywhere between 25 and 30 towards the bottom end of that draft. But we've seen players like a Jimmy Butler selected at 30 to still be able to turn themselves into a hell of a player. And he has the work ethic that he's going to get the most out of whatever potential that he has. His shot off the dribble is quick. He has some creativity there. I don't know if he's necessarily the player that you just want to create their own shot. But again, coming off screens, coming off pin downs, having a great point guard out there with vision. Again, he's going to be a knockdown three-point shooter at the NBA level. His release is smooth. He has damn near Steph Curry range when it comes to it sometimes. And he's a really solid ball handler as well. He can initiate some offense for you. And I honestly think that if he can put on some weight, he's going to be a great wing player for a team as far as a possible 3-and-D guy. Now, his defense is not the best right now, but he has the tools to be a really good defender, and he's not terrible defensively. Let me be clear here. He's not a terrible defensive player by any means, but I think in looking at Caleb Houstan and the way that I see him projecting, again, my opinion holds no more weight than anybody else's, so you guys may see differently. I see Caleb Houstan being a very great system player. He's going to be one of those players, if he goes to the correct team, that he can be, like I said, a 3-and-D player, a player that shoots high percentage on high volume 3-point shooting as well, and that's going to be his hallmark in the NBA. Both these players that we covered today, I think, are very much so going to be specialist players, and the team that drafts them is going to be key in however they turn out, because if they go to the right system, if they go to the right situation that's there that can maximize what skill set that they do have, they can be hell of NBA players. But I don't know if they're going to be the caliber of player that the Bulls can get with some of the other prospects that are available. That's why I'm not as high on either one of these guys, but I'm not low on them either. If for some reason, and as you guys know, I trust AK and Eversley. If AK and Eversley see something in either one of these guys, that means says to me that they have a vision of how they want to use them and how they would fit in on this team specifically. And to talk more about Caleb Houston's fit specifically on the Chicago Bulls, one of the things that we did lack is 3-point shooting, right? We know at one point, yes, we had one of the highest 3-point shooting percentages in the NBA, but we had one of the lowest attempts in the NBA as well. Caleb Houstan would almost immediately fix that for the Chicago Bulls with Zach LaVine, with better shooting from Io, things like that. And I think we're going to improve shooting overall on this team as a whole. But Caleb Houstan, I can definitely see turning into a 3-and-D player, and he's one of those players that can almost fit in. He can almost fit into any system just because of his shooting ability. But I think if you have great passers around him, if he goes to a team that has great ball movement, and that's another thing with Caleb Houstan. And one thing that we were missing on this Chicago Bulls team is he moves very well without the ball. And if you notice, some of the times when the Bulls offense stagnated the most is when players weren't moving without the ball. You won't have to worry about that with Caleb Houstan. Like I said, coming off screens, always moving out the ball. Those are going to be the things that get Caleb Houstan minutes right away and make him effective for an NBA team. And that is how he could help this Bulls team right away, is coming in, always moving, always having his head up, and just using that quick trigger that he has and that amazing perimeter shooting to be an effective player on the NBA level. That's what I think for Caleb Houstan. I'm higher on Caleb Houstan than I am Dyson Daniels, but Let me know what you guys think down below on Caleb Houstan and how he projects for the Chicago Bulls, and if he were to be the pick at 18th. Like I said, I think that either one of these players would be a huge reach for the Chicago. Let me not say huge. It would be a slight reach for the Chicago Bulls, just considering there are either players that are better and can give the Bulls more right now, but then if you're going to go potential, there are players with much higher potential than either one of these players, even though they do have a ton of potential themselves as well. But let me know what you guys think about those prospects down below. Thank you so much for tuning in to Chicago Bulls Central today. Make sure you're following the show at Bulls Central Pod on any social media platform that we're on. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, bullcentralpod@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text and a voicemail about any of the prospects we covered so far, any of the comments that we covered and news that we covered on this episode as well, or if you just want to talk to me about the Chicago Bulls, make sure you're doing that at 773-270-2799. Like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.